Hey, today I'm talking about three 1941 Ingrid Bergman films. And the names of those three movies are Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Adam Had Four Sons, and Rage in Heaven. First up is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is a 1941 film. It was kind of critically panned or got mixed reviews back in the day, but I honestly loved it. And for, interestingly enough, like the exact reasons why critics criticize this movie. So it's the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He has this idea. He wants to see if it's possible to separate the good from the evil of a person. He's using moral terms because that's the language of the 1940s, but he's really talking about, is it scientifically possible to separate out someone's impulse control, like punching someone is bad, but can we scientifically do it so that we don't even have that impulse to like punch someone when they say something really atrocious? Is that possible? And I think that's a really interesting idea just to start off with. And his whole moral discussion about it is really interesting. And so like a big criticism of the film from back in the day is that they're like, oh, which one's Dr. Jekyll and which one's Mr. Hyde? As in which one's the good one and which one's the bad one? And I'm like, that's the point. The point is that you don't need to take a serum to turn into a terrible person. It's that people are complex. They can be very outwardly like, oh, I'm a really good person, but actually like they have deep down issues. Maybe like the handsome, good looking guy is actually the villain. So like that was great. I love that a lot. But then on top of it, they're like, oh, it's not scary. It's never scary. But I'm like, okay, clearly you've never been a woman in a bar who has a drunk man who just won't take no for an answer and then gets physical, because that's terrifying. That concept in general is terrifying. And they do that more than once in this film. He literally traps a woman for a long time. So yeah, no, this movie's scary, this movie's messed up, but it's great. It's so good. They really nailed it. And like Spencer Tracy had such great facial performance, especially as, well, I mean both of them, but like the standout is as Mr. Hyde. It's so unsettling of just like his eyes are always big. He always has this like insane smile going. And it's just so like an intense coked up look. It seems hard for me to imagine someone not being terrified of this man, especially if you imagine this in a real life context. Like if someone comes up to you looking like this, being like, hey baby, wanna get some? Like, that shit's terrifying. You cannot tell me that's not scary. So yeah, no, I love this movie and would wholeheartedly recommend it because it's just an incredibly well-made film with great metaphors, just an awesome story, wonderful performances. Yeah, no, totally without a doubt recommend this movie. Next up is Adam Had Four Sons. This is a 1941 film, and the basic premise is this young woman is taking advantage of this young man who has joined the military, and she wants to like take advantage of the generosity of him and his family so that like, while the boy is away, she can just not work and do whatever she wants, which is sleep with his siblings. That's not where the movie starts though, but that is what the movie's about. Where the movie starts is it's kind of like The Sound of Music, where like there's this young family that need a caretaker for the children. And so they bring in this foreign woman to help take care of them. She does do that. The mom dies. There's some like flirting between the dad and the nanny, but then she goes away and then several years go by and then she comes back. And it's like, we didn't need any of that. None of that was important to the story whatsoever. Ingrid Bergman plays the nanny. She's kind of superfluous to this entire story. It's not about her. It's about this gold digging woman. And like, yeah, the conflict, she helps bring about change and stuff, but like, we didn't need her backstory. We didn't need to see her backstory. As soon as we see like their response to seeing her as young adults, we understand the backstory of like, oh, we loved you when we were kids. We love you now. This is great. It was either 20 or 30 minutes of just getting this backstory stuff. And the movie's short too. It's like 80 minutes long. So like, that was a lot of runtime dedicated to something that absolutely did not matter for what this story is. And like, we really needed more time of establishing each of these four sons. Cause like, A, there's a lot of sons and it's hard to keep them straight because they all seem so interchangeable. Like, yeah, they each had like their one thing that they liked a lot, but like, I couldn't remember what those things were. So like, I don't get why did we spend so much time establishing the backstory to a character that isn't important. Like, the four sons are the important part because they're the ones that are like getting bounced between. I like the concept of this movie because like, it's definitely an interesting idea of like this woman who's just trying to use this family. I think there's a lot of story in that idea. I think the actress who played her did a good job because she was terrible and hard to watch because it was just like, wow, you're a shitty person. Okay. So the actress there definitely did her job. But like, man, no. Why? Why did we waste so much time of this short story? Like, better establish the characters that are actually important. Don't give us pointless backstory. So I didn't dislike this movie, but I didn't like this movie either. I wouldn't recommend it. If someone remade this movie, I'd be down for that. I think there's an interesting story within this story, but as presented here, no. And lastly is Rage in Heaven. I don't know how I didn't put this movie in the didn't like. Okay, so the basic premise of this one is Ingrid Bergman plays this assistant to this dying old lady, and she has a son who's a psychopath, and the son has a best friend who's charming and can do a British accent. Ingrid Bergman falls in love with the charming guy who can do a British accent, but then he has to go away, and so she marries the son for some reason. And then the son decides to then spend the rest of the movie gaslighting everyone and being just a genuinely terrible person. He just wants to watch the world burn, but not in like an interesting way. He's just like, everything. I'm gonna make these people's lives as miserable as I possibly can while also manipulating them. And it's like, it's just not interesting to watch because it's just like, he's just like the physical manifestation of evil. And that's so boring. I did like the chemistry between Ingrid and the guy who could do a British accent. There were some good vibes there. And I would watch a movie that was just them doing rom-com stuff. That would be fun. But that's not what this movie is. It wanted to be a Hitchcock film. It wanted to be spellbound. It was trying to be a psychological thriller, but it didn't understand the psychology behind the character that centered the film on. It was just like, this is a bad guy who's just gonna do everything that's the worst. And like, his reasoning for it, because there is a reason, it's a shit reason. Like, it's so dumb. I definitely did not care for this movie, as you can probably tell. But I can't ignore the chemistry between the two characters that I liked. So it's a meh, but it's a low meh. And again, I don't recommend it. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde sitting number 12 in the really like section. And then after that, a long ways down, is Adam Had Four Sons sitting at number 52 in the meh section. And then bringing up the rear, rightfully so, is Rage in Heaven sitting at number 54, also in the meh section. And this is a total of 60 old movies so far this year.